We are all aware of the blockbuster game from Rockstar called Grand Theft Auto. Although this game has been released for a decade now, we thought it would be a good idea to have a recap of it while we await the next installment in the series. So without further ado, let's begin. The game starts 9 years in the past, where we see Michael, Trevor, and their friend Brad raiding a bank in a small town in North. The trio manages to successfully rob the bank and make it out, but soon their car crashes and they are forced to proceed on foot. During this, Michael and Brad get shot by an FBI agent named Davis. Wounded, Michael asks Trevor to leave them and escape the cops, and Trevor somehow manages to evade the cops and leaving all of the loot behind with Michael and Brad. After this, we get to see a priest and some people praying for Michael at his grave, while Michael watches his own funeral nearby in a disguise. 9 years go by. The scene shifts to Michael complaining about his life to his shrink Dr. Friedlander. As he leaves the office and sits at a bench at beach, he is approached by Franklin and Lamar, two young hustlers who ask Michael an address of a person which they are about to rob. Michael guides them and we see Franklin and Lamar stealing and taking back the credited cars to their boss Simeon, who is car dealership owner running a fraud scam. By using Franklin and Lamar requisiting cars he has sold to his customers. After this, Franklin heads back to his home which he shares with his Aunt Dennis. The next day, Franklin visits the dealership and Simeon asks him to retrieve a car that he recently sold to a rich kid, and Franklin breaks into his house to steal the car and bring it back to Simeon. To his surprise, the car belongs to Jimmy, Michael's son, and Michael has been hiding in the car's back seat waiting for Franklin to try to steal it. He puts a pistol against Franklin's head and asks him to ram the car through the dealership's glass wall. As Franklin breaks into the dealership, Michael hands him a dollar bill and offers him to visit him sometime to learn better ways of making money. After this, Michael beats Simeon and warns him to stay away from his family. After losing his job and having no other way to make money, Franklin decides to pay a visit to Michael, and while they are having a chat, Michael gets a call from Jimmy, who informs him that he has been kidnapped after a failed attempt to sell his yacht to some gang members. Michael and Franklin rush to rescue Jimmy and they succeed in it, but their car breaks down before they could stop the truck carrying the yacht. Michael asks Franklin to repair the car and bring it back home along with Jimmy, and Franklin does as he is asked to. The following day, Michael discovers his wife cheating on him with her tennis coach, and as Franklin arrives right at the same time he catches his wife, he asks Franklin to help him teach a lesson to the coach, and both of them chase him. Soon they lose trail of the coach, but after searching a little, they find him standing on the balcony of a modern luxury villa, apologizing to Michael, but Michael refuses any apology and decides to bring down his home with the help of a towing chain attached to his truck. As they reach Michael's home, Martin arrives with his gang members and attacks Michael for breaking his home. Michael is asked to pay for the damage he has done by Martin in an aggressive tone, and this forces Michael to return to his old job as a thief. In the coming days, he meets up with his old friend and gang member Lester, who is a tech master and computer expert. As Michael explains his problem to Lester, Lester suggests that they hit a jewelry store to make up enough money to pay to Martin. Michael brings in Franklin on board with the heist, and the group starts to prepare for the heist. While Franklin is still getting closer to Michael, his homie Lamar and Stretch, who just returned from jail, set up a fake kidnapping of a rival gang member to ask for ransom, but it turns out that the rival gangster set them up for an ambush attack by his gang. The trio hardly manages to escape the shootout place, and Franklin expresses that he is unhappy with the stupid gang wars and does not want to do small town jobs anymore, causing a small argument between him and his homies. Soon the heist preparations are done and the group decides to move forward with it. Michael and the gunman break into the jewelry store and steal the jewels, while Lester hacks the security system to avoid immediate detection. After stealing the jewels, Michael heads out and warns the parking security with his iconic dialogue, and the gang makes its escape on bikes, and after losing the police, they enter a truck and the entire gang arrives at a hideout prepared by Lester, who informs them that the jewels will be sold soon and everyone will get their cut transferred into their accounts in the coming days. Later, Franklin arrives at Michael's home to celebrate for the successful heist. They are disturbed by Davis, the same agent which shot Michael 9 years ago. We get to learn that Michael made a deal with Davis and set up his past gang in exchange of escaping the police and living a new life in Los Santos with all the money he stole that day from the bank. Davis expresses his discomfort with Michael returning back to doing heists, as it could destroy his career in case Michael gets caught. As they watch the TV, they learn that the news about the heist is all over the media. The scene then shifts, and we see Trevor in a trailer with a hooker, hearing the same news where the parking security guy mentions the iconic dialogue that Michael said to him. Trevor immediately notices it and realizes that Michael is still alive and is living somewhere in Los Santos. He heads out in rage and shock, and he is disturbed by Johnny, a biker gangster who is the boyfriend of the hooker Trevor was using. The argument between them leads to Trevor eventually killing Johnny, and he asks his employees Wade and Ron to get into his truck as they are going to pay a visit to the rest of the bikers to attack them before they come to take revenge for Johnny. The trio reaches the biker hideout, and Trevor alone manages to kill a lot of them while some escape. After this, he asks his employee Wade to leave for Los Santos and search for Michael Townley, his ex-partner, while Ron and Trevor continue their business and head towards the Ortega's gang trailer, where Trevor kills a member of their gang to send a message to the Ortegas to step back from the guns business in the region. After this, they return back home. The next day, Ron sets up Trevor with a meth buyer from China and Trevor meets them in a local bar. Mr. Chang and his translator asks to see Trevor's manufacturing facility and Trevor takes them to his lab, where the chef informs him that the bikers are coming back to take revenge from Trevor. Trevor locks Chang and his translator in a freezer and takes care of the bikers. Once he has killed the attackers, he unlocks the buyers and asks them to prepare for purchasing meth from him. As Trevor reaches back his trailer, he is met with Ron, who informs him that the bikers broke into his home and vandalized his property. Enraged by this, Trevor decides to attack the bikers once again and steal their cargo planes. While he is leaving, he meets Wade, who returns with the news that there is no Michael Townley in Los Santos. However, there is a Michael DeSanta with the same age and family description as Michael Townley. Trevor quickly realizes that Michael is living with a new name in Los Santos, and he asks Wade to prepare for a trip to Los Santos with him once he has taken care of the bikers. After this, Wade and Trevor head towards the bikers' runway place, where Trevor kills the remaining bikers and steals their planes and brings it to his own plane hangar. The next day, he meets Chang and his translator and asks him if they are ready to move forward with the meth deal. Unfortunately, Trevor is disappointed by the news that the buyers have decided to do business with another local dealer instead, and Trevor forces them to tell him who. He learns that the O'Neill brothers have stolen the contract from him and he heads off to face them. Trevor attacks the O'Neill farmhouse and destroys their entire lab after killing the entire O'Neill family and takes back his meth contract. After this, he prepares to go to Los Santos with Wade and he pays a final visit to the remaining bikers before going. Trevor sets off bombs at their trailer park and completely destroys the biker gang before leaving for Los Santos. Wade informs him that his cousin Floyd lives somewhere near the beach in Los Santos, and the duo decides to make its way to Floyd's house. Once there, Trevor forces himself into Floyd's house, who is sharing the apartment with his girlfriend Deborah, but that doesn't bother Trevor as he announces that he will be staying there until he is in Los Santos and he shuts Floyd up with his threatening tone. The next day, Trevor visits Michael's home. Michael's entire family is shocked by Trevor's visit, and before Trevor could confront Michael, they learn that Michael's daughter is participating in a humiliating TV talent show and Michael and Trevor decide to go and stop her. The duo then breaks into the show set and chase off the show host in a truck, eventually catching him and humiliating before leaving. Worried about the entire situation and getting caught by Trevor, Michael meets Davis and informs him about Trevor's return. Davis decides to play as the helping cop who can help them get Brad out of the jail, but in return he asks Michael to do favors for him and the FBI. He sets him up with his colleagues from the FBI, Agent Steve and Andreas. They ask Michael to form a team with Trevor and Franklin and do in favors for the Bureau against the CIA so they can have a higher budget from the government this year, as they cannot do it themselves being federal agents of the Bureau. Michael meets up with Franklin and explains the entire situation to him and requests him to help. Franklin agrees to help out of respect for Michael. The three of them then start doing favors for the Bureau, including kidnapping federal witnesses, killing global terrorists, stealing secret weapons from government facilities, and stealing funds from the CIA cargo trucks. During all of this, Trevor plans a heist of his own against a private militia called Merryweather. He uses Floyd's job privileges at the port to do his scouting and learns that the Merryweather are guarding a valuable item underwater. Trevor brings in Michael and Franklin on board to help him with the heist, as a favor for old times. The crew succeed in stealing the valuable item from underwater, but they are disappointed when Lester arrives and tells them that they have just stole a superweapon and the government will kill every one of them if they do not return it immediately, which causes all of their efforts to go to waste and they are forced to return the superweapon by throwing it back in the ocean near the government facility. At one hand, Franklin finally makes it out of the hood as Lester gifts him a luxury home for doing favors for him, and on the other hand, Michael faces some family problems which leads his family to abandon him and he is left alone in his home. The trio then continues doing more favors for the Bureau, which leads them to getting in touch with Devin Weston, a rich businessman who asks the crew to do jobs of his own of stealing supercars from around the state. In return, he puts Michael in touch with a movie director, Salomon Richards. Sahil, being a huge Hollywood fan, immediately partners up with Salomon and starts helping him with his recent movie project. Eventually, Salomon faces a problem from Devin Weston as he wants to destroy the movie and get insurance payout from the bank for it. Michael helps him out and ends up killing Devin's secretary to retrieve the movie files and brings it back to Salomon. In return, Salomon makes Michael the associate producer of his upcoming film. During this, Michael gets called in for favor by Martin. This time he asks him to kill his cousin who is trying to testify against him in court. Michael brings Trevor to help him with this mission, and after successfully doing it, Trevor heads back to Martin's house for the due payment for the task. But as Martin refuses, he kidnaps his wife and brings her to live with him at his trailer. This forces Michael to leave the city in order to avoid Martin's men attacking him, and he stays with Trevor for some time. The duo steals off valuable artifacts from a train cargo and uses it to apologize to Martin and return his wife to him, so Michael can return back to the city. After returning Martin his wife, Michael returns to Los Santos and his family reunites with him. Later, at the night of the premiere of Michael's movie, Devin informs him that he has sent his guards to his home to attack his wife and daughter. Michael rushes back home and manages to protect his family. On the other hand, Trevor returns to Los Santos and he is met by Floyd's girlfriend Deborah, who asks him to leave her home in an aggressive way. This leads to Trevor killing both of them, and he takes Wade to a stripper club and hides from him that he just killed his cousin and his girlfriend. Trevor then continues his madness and kills the strip club owner to take over the club as his new safe house. There, the crew including Lester gathers and they decide to pull a heist for themselves, hitting the largest bank in the country, and they begin scouting the area and building for it. Meanwhile, Trevor finally starts asking questions to Michael about Brad and asks him about who is actually buried in his grave back and up north. Trevor guesses that it is Brad buried in his grave, and Michael has been lying to him all this long and leaves to go find out about it himself. Michael tries to stop him but fails. Trevor flies off to North and Michael follows him. As Michael reaches the graveyard, he finds Trevor already there with the hatchet ready to dig the grave and find out the truth. As he breaks the buried coffin, he finds out that his assumptions were all true, and Michael finally confesses about his deal with the Bureau, claiming that he had no other choice. While they are both facing each other with weapons in their hands, they are attacked by Chang's men as Trevor has not delivered them the promised goods. Trevor manages to escape while Michael is caught by Chang's men. Back in Los Santos, Franklin asks Trevor about Michael and learns that he has been kidnapped. Franklin decides to act his own and rescues Michael with a Lester who helps him with tracking Michael. Later, Michael meets with Davis in a sudden call from him. Turns out that Steve, Andreas, and Davis are under investigation by the government for the crimes that they have been doing, and they wanted to put Michael up as the culprit to escape the investigations. While they are having an argument, they are ambushed by the CIA that was called there by Andreas. Things get even worse when Merriweather arrives at the scene as well to kill Michael. Steve ends up killing Andreas, and all of them tries to escape in their own way. Michael gets a helping hand by Trevor and manages to make it out of the shootout. Later, Trevor reveals that he needs Michael alive to do the bank heist, and if he helps him then he won't kill Michael in return. Michael agrees and informs Lester and asks him to prepare planning for the heist. On the other hand, Franklin is approached by Tanisha, her old friend from the hood, and she informs him that Stretch has set Lamar up in return of some money from the opposite gang, and he is being held hostage at a lumber mill in the woods. Although Franklin is tired of looking after Lamar, he agrees to save him and asks Michael and Trevor to help him rescue Lamar. The three of them successfully rescue him, and Franklin takes him back to his home. As Franklin is about to leave the place, he is approached by Steve and Davis, who asks him to kill Trevor so he cannot testify against them in case he goes crazy one day. Franklin seems to be reluctant about it, but the agents leave, claiming that they will give him the call when it's the right time to take Trevor out. The following day, everyone including Lester meet up at the strip club, and they finally decide to move ahead and hit the biggest bank in the city. Dressed up as security guards, Franklin, Michael, and Trevor get inside the bank and load an entire stock of gold into the trucks. They manage to cleanly get the trucks to their hideout, where they transfer the gold into faster cars to take it to Lester, but they are disturbed by Merriweather, who tracks the group down to kill them. The crew manages to escape the militia and police and successfully gets the cars to the destination trucks, which are then taken secretly to a hideout so Lester can sell the gold in the black market, making the heist successful. As the trio returns to Michael's home for celebration, Things get heated as Michael and Trevor get into an argument once more about having trust issues with each other. The next day, Devin Weston pays a visit to Franklin and asks him to kill Michael as a personal revenge for damaging his interests, and in return he promises to take care of the FBI agents for Franklin. Franklin now has the choice to make the game's ending. There are 3 options given to him. 1. Kill Trevor and make the Bureau happy. 2. Kill Michael and make Devin happy. Or 3. Save Michael and Trevor and instead kill everyone else who is trying to mess with them. As he chooses option 3, he meets up with Lamar and they come up with a plan to take care of all their enemies all at once. Franklin asks Michael and Trevor to meet up with him at an old factory where he calls in Merryweather and uses Michael and Trevor as a bait. Once the militia arrives, the group attacks them and kills a ton of their soldiers. After this, they ask Lester to track down every one of their enemies, except Agent Dave, as Michael claims that he will help them get away from the mess after all these killings. The trio kills their enemies one by one, including Agent Steve, Mr. Chang, Stretch, and finally Devin Weston, who they kidnap and put in a trunk of a car, which is thrown into the ocean by them. The game ends with all 3 of them standing in front of the ocean as the sun sets. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe for more great videos. We will see you in the next one.